Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have Tim Michaels on with me. He is an intuitive coach and Reiki master. And Tim seamlessly merges traditional life coaching with wellness tools to address the entirety of an individual, supporting transformative change. Describing himself as a trusted guide, Tim navigates the various paths to help clients find what resonates with them for their life's aspirations. Tim is not only an intuitive coach and Reiki master, but also a certified crystal energy guide, mastery level presenter, trainer, facilitator, and motivational speaker. Beyond his work with clients, he engages groups on topics like effective communication, leadership development, moving to wellness, gratitude, stress management, and the power of forgiveness. Tim's natural curiosity and dedication to learning are evident, and outside of his professional pursuits, he enjoys the outdoors, particularly spending time at the shore, all while trying to resist ordering more books on Amazon. I'm with you there.
Doing well.
For more information about Tim, you can visit his website at www.tmicar.com. So welcome, Tim. How are you today?
I am wonderful. And I'm just laughing because there are 3 boxes at the door right now.
Yeah,
and
right.
I order all boxes of books. So, and I always get surprised. It's like, I don't know who ordered these. I don't remember ordering them, but yeah.
They're just sent from the universe.
I swear to God, it's somebody else doing it, and it's time to move. I need another house with another room that has more space. But as far back as I can remember, books were friends. So it seems so natural to keep ordering books. But the thing about books for me that ties into my work is I'm usually looking to see how an author's presentation of a topic, I'm going to find the 1 or 2 threads that will run through other people's work. So the minute I can take aspects of work from Don Miguel Ruiz around, his 5 agreements, and I'm reading a book by Robert Emmons around gratitude and some of the principles, and I trip across a sentence around, but you've got to make a choice, and you've got to own the way you're going to say it, thinking, wow, this is what this one's saying over here. And my mind naturally works as if I'm building a constellation. And there have been some books, I don't even finish them. I feel like I got the threads I needed. Now I have a bigger and better foundation for believing, kind of the topic of the ancient Tao. There's only 10,000 things in the universe, and we spend a lot of time trying to reinvent them. But I think the twist on that really is people, depending on the day of the week or the time of your life, need to hear things in a slightly different tone or language or perspective. It may have made sense to you 5 years ago. It no longer does, and you have to reinvigorate yourself by going to a different corner of the world saying, this feels familiar, but for some reason, the frequency of these words is matching my frequency today. So sorry, if you hadn't said books, we wouldn't have launched into that whole thing.
But that's awesome. And I love just when I do these, because sometimes we go down a little, like path that we didn't expect. And there's a reason for it. I'm sure it's guided for sure. And it's interesting that you say like people need to hear things in different ways. And I also think people need to hear things from different people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've told my friends, they're complaining about some issue, some health issue they're having, and they've gone to a million traditional medical doctors and it hasn't been solved. And I've told them, 15, 20, 30, 80 million times, try a naturopath. And it's like somebody else says it to them and then they go try a naturopath. I'm like, you needed to hear it from somebody else, not me.
Um, and I think a lot of that has to do, though, with how much risk there is in the relationship.
Yeah,
And we often don't think about our close relationships or loving relationships. Um, it has such weird energy sometimes. The
yeah,
harder I try to help you, the more you're afraid you'll disappoint me. You don't want to do it. You don't want to tell me that. It would be so much better. And the same thing has happened to me. And I try to coach people close to me just to say, that's not right for me now. That's not good for me now.
right.
Good. I'll go off in
Yeah,
my corner. I have so many fascinating things.
yeah,
Um, the other thing that I try to do nicely, but there really does come a moment where you need to ask people, I call them the come to Jesus questions. You know, you have a health challenge or a situation you've been in for a while. Are you enjoying it?
yeah,
And it's like such a disrespectful question. And I quietly say, but you need to understand, our bodies get addicted to chemicals, and the stress related to this, your body likes. And if
yeah,
you're doing good, I'm so happy for you. You're enjoying it. I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to sit quietly because you seem really happy.
yeah,
And they'll look at me funny. And it's like, if you decide one day, well, that's not true, but I'm just, oh, you're angry. That's what's happening. Well, we can work with that differently. If we can address you're angry around your health issue, then going to a naturopath or trying acupuncture or Reiki has become a lot easier. If first we acknowledge the anger.
yeah, yeah. No, I love it. And I love that you mentioned that we can get addicted to emotions
Mhm.
because I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize in terms of the negative emotions that you can actually get your body can actually get addicted to those emotions of
Absolutely.
stress and anger like you said, or fear is a huge one. People are like, what do you mean I'm not addicted to fear? Yeah, you probably are and you don't even realize it.
Yes. But we give it another name because it's more popular now to say I'm overwhelmed and anxious. And again,
Exactly.
I am going to run into this problem all over the place. I have the grace of being with you for an hour, so I want to be responsible how I say things. But it really is that.
Yeah.
It's when you actually are able to say, I'm afraid, instead of saying, oh, I'm anxious, if I'm overwhelmed, because that's what we hear everywhere. All of a sudden, it begins to shift. I'm afraid. I've taken a big risk. I've put myself out there, and all of a sudden it's starting to happen. And I've always said the worst thing that can happen to anybody is you start getting what you want. We're not prepared.
Exactly.
The
Right.
negative bias process, we're not prepared. But having quiet conversations and playing them back, because we've all heard someone in our friend or family group joke and say, I just really needed a good fight with my spouse. I needed
Yeah.
a good fight, and then the house got clean, and I went running on the gym and just needed to clear the air. And so after a while, I started playing it back. So I said, so when you have a fight, these are the chemicals flowing through your body. So what you're saying to me is that you had a withdrawal from these chemicals that you used to run on. You like them.
Mm,
So you created a way to get them.
right.
You had a
Yeah.
fight, and
Yeah.
then it really pumped you up and you got stuff done.
There is an easier way to do it, but
There is, and this is where a little bit of nerdy life comes in and is helpful. Because sometimes when you're talking about life coaching or Reiki or using crystals or tarot cards, any of the tools to help people become present and set an intent, what we're really trying to talk with people around is say, understand a little your biology first. So you've got a little processing center in your brain that helps automate things, driving a car. Well, it doesn't have a judgment system. It doesn't know good from bad.
Mhm.
It's going to help you automate anything. And if you've decided that the world is bad and your only choice is survival, then this little piece in your brain is going to start blocking all the other messages or opportunities because it's helping you get it done easier. It says, oh, here's a happy moment. We're going to block it because you repeatedly want to do this. I'm going to make this easier for you to stay this way. You just won't see this now. So when
Yeah.
we start saying to people, what is the benefit of a gratitude practice? It's a 28 to 64-day practice to live a life of gratitude, get your biology to help you, And then realize that once you automate the process, we've got to be careful that we now change it up every so often, just like going to the gym.
Yeah.
So it's just once you kind of get that, and I'll just leave this kind of thought here. Using our mirror neurons, I encourage everybody, be brave. Just get in an elevator, face the wrong way, and smile at everybody. Freak them out, but they're going to smile back because they don't know what else to do because their mirror neurons say, oh, I should smile. Just do it. I mean, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Oh,
Five happy people,
it happens all
right?
the time. Like when you smile at somebody, they smile back. You say hi, they say hi back. Yeah, it is like a fun little experiment to try.
It's fun, but it's also biology. If we all
Yeah.
walk around saying, don't forget, clean up your mirror neurons today, give people something to reflect that will help.
Yeah.
Smile, give them an
So
authentic nod.
before we go to break, just in a couple minutes, I just want to make sure people know a little bit about your background. I love the way we started this though, because I think there's already so many great teaching moments. But just tell us, like, how did you get to where you are? What were you doing before? And
All right. So from a professional point of view, first 26 years of my adult working life were spent in a for-profit insurance company, usually in human resources, project management, lean process improvement. And then it is just my nature. I know my purpose in this world is to serve. So in the late 80s and the 90s, when corporations weren't doing well and you're selling chunks of companies and downsizing, I ended up on more projects and working with more groups around how to do things in a way that left us feeling whole and authentic. And when that world, when I no longer matched that world, I left it after 26 years and went to work in a hospital. And it was 2006. I might have stepped back into 1950s. I was in human resources. There was still a lot of paper and pencils, but it was easy to maintain your focus. Walk down the hallway and see somebody with an IV pole. You knew what you were working for. And then hospitals are notorious for not having enough staff or enough resources. So I just started picking up all kinds of things. And along the way, my connection to my dogma, the religion I was raised with, shifted. My life shifted. And my superhero power is being curious. I
yeah.
started looking for more and more things that were the same. I actually committed for one period of time to reading the Bible from the first page to the last page 3 times.
Wow. I want to hear more about that. We got to
Sure.
take a quick break. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. When we come back, we'll explore more with Tim Michaels, intuitive coach and Reiki master. Stay tuned. We'll be
Awesome.
right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or my publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Tim Michaels at www.tmicar.com. So welcome back, Tim. We were talking about your journey
Yes.
and kind of what led you to doing what you do now. And before we went to break, you said that you read the Bible from cover to cover. I
Yes.
don't know too many people that can say that.
But I was curious because
Yeah,
you have a world full of experts. And again, this is my relationship now with God, with Jesus, my archangels, my language. So it has morphed into a quantum physics type of approach of where I begin and where they begin. It's all connected. But what I really walked away with is thinking, well, it's one sentence. And it sounds just like my mother wrote it, because in the Old Testament, it's children. And they have to be told repeatedly, and they have to be given times out, and they have to be told, stop sticking things in the outlets. And that's so right around our teenage years, God said, I'm so done with you. I'm bringing in an expert. He's going to get you through the next part. And it begins to shift. Well, of course, teenage years do shift, and there's discernment, and there's messages, and there's uh, going to the well to meet with the teacher, and you're being told stories because you can begin to integrate the stories into what you need to do. That's the benefit of teaching through parables. And what I realized coming out of all of that is there were three really fascinating things to me. In the Old Testament, it tells a story buried in the middle of the Old Testament. In the book of Chronicles, it talks about this one man named Jabez. Now, this is important for the work I do because that man's name means born of pain. And we have all been taught sometimes that the only way you can get something is you're going to have to suffer through, right? You're going to have to go to school for 25 years and be poor and eat ramen noodles, and there's just no way around it.
No pain, no gain. That's the cliche, right?
Absolutely. But in the book of Chronicles, all it's doing is saying who was born of who. And it stops. It just stops for about 7 lines and it says, let's talk about this man Jabez. Name means born of pain. He did well for himself, but he walked to the end of his property, which, by the way, means he walked by all of his distractions. He stopped at the edge of his property. He looked up to God and said, you know what? I'd like more. And I'd like it indeed a lot. And really, I don't want to suffer. And God said, great, you have it. Doesn't that sound like our parents saying, if you come and ask, we can help you? Okay, very strong message. But the number of times in the New Testament, it points out that Jesus feeds 5,000, walks on water, calms a storm, and then goes and rests. This became the whole foundation of my wellness work. And I would just quietly say, it doesn't matter if you're a faithful person or not, it's a book, but the author who wrote the book has this character, and the character can do miracles and then takes a nap. So clearly, rest must be important, right?
Yeah, but nobody does it.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just happy to sit in the room and say that. So why do you think they wrote it? Do you think they ran out of thoughts?
Yeah.
He took a rest. Okay. And I'm not being, disrespectful, but I thought that is a goal. That must become a goal, is to understand, ask for what you want, be clear in your language, and rest. And rest. And so that kind of leads into this piece of the work. So how is this all coming together? Was my spiritual journey at that time. And then things began to happen. There was some really traumatic deaths in the family, things that I was raised in a certain way that people at funerals would say, well, we don't know why God did this. God shouldn't have done this. And none of that made sense to me. None of it. And the reason it didn't is my sister, Mary Beth, died when she was 33 of breast cancer, and she had a 10-month-old baby.
Wow.
And just the way it went, she was having her first chemotherapy. I knew enough about chemotherapy to say, I don't know how you're going to get up with a baby at night. And Mary Beth was a single mom. But here's what I want you to hear about this story. It was true that there was one leaving, but it's also very true there was another life force that had come in, and they were living in the same room. And I couldn't separate it. I couldn't separate the warm pink baby on a January morning who just learned how to stand in the crib and is bouncing up and down from the woman who could no longer get out of the bed. It was all in the same place. And it became this, really, to this day, I think of that and feel the immense gratitude, because that baby taught me unconditional love. She's also the first one that taught me the power of communication from the electromagnetic field off your heart. January 10th, freezing cold. I can tell you exactly what she was wearing, a little fuzzy yellow sleeper. And I'm walking 12 feet down the hallway, and she kind of throws her head back, which is usual. She was 6 months older, so they're always doing that. But she threw her head back and grabbed the front of my shirt in both fists and just stared at me. But it was as if a full sentence got dropped in my head. And the sentence was, you're the one now. Clear as a bell. Clear. Wow. And from that moment on, clear as a bell. And I knew as soon as I attended to her, I had to attend to her mom. But it was happening at once. And it became this ability of really learning the hard way what fully being present meant. So I wasn't denying one, wasn't using one to hide the other. They were just happening. So those experiences began to build into the way I was working at the time at the hospital. And I was doing leadership development and coaching leaders one-on-one, doing teamwork. And I've always taken these life experiences and brought them in. And I don't necessarily always tell the story, but it's very important that when I can read the energy off a person and I know kind of where they're at, then I can take a much different approach with them because I can recognize the frequency of what's happening. So I don't know if that made sense.
No, I mean, what an amazing story, because how many other people would have handled that such a different way? Like just
Mhm.
resentment and anger and, like that, like you said, like the people at the funeral saying, like, this isn't fair. That's the way most people would look at it. And
Yeah, and
I
there's
mean,
a part of
first,
me
life's
agreeing, but
life's not fair, but you can't look at it that way.
well, there's so many conversations around that, around, how you selected this life and what your plans were. And I have some of those thoughts. This is just not fair. But at the same time, my brain has never been able to move much further than the power this little girl had to communicate, this baby, but also as a man, being with somebody when they die is as close as a man can get to understanding what giving birth is like. Because when you're with somebody at the moment they pass over, it is an instantaneous shift from high pain and stress to joy,
Yeah.
joy, an absolute joy. And those experiences have convinced me, A, I don't need to convince the world, but have convinced me of the power of energy. And when you get to know it and manage it, how the experience you're left with can be different than everybody else in the room.
Right.
So as I went on, and COVID hit, I had opted to stay working inside the hospital. And during that period of time, I'm a natural introvert. It was the best time because a lot of people weren't doing social things. I took a course in the science of wellness at Yale. They were offering it free. Dr. Laura Santos was incredible, but I learned so many things in there to bring into my coaching or my Reiki work. I took an angel Reiki course, did my Reiki course, but then I partnered with an intuitive, integrative medicine doctor, Kathleen Muller, and we started holding small circle groups. And she would set acupuncture needles in the ear, auricular acupuncture.
Mhm.
We'd let staff sit for 15 minutes, and then we would hold a 3-question process. The acupuncture needles in the ear, if I can hit the vagus nerve just right, is going to shift the autonomic system. Once everybody blisses down a little bit, and that's really what happens. You go from being fight or flight, I'm a nurse in an ICU unit, all that kind of stuff, and I brought you down, and I say to you, what's the one thing that you haven't been able to say to anybody? And I heard amazing things, but it was the staff's ability to say things that they weren't saying. That saying things like, I can't stand the sound of a zipper. I can't zip my coats anymore. And I said, why? And this woman who was in her mid to late 50s said, I have zippered more body bags in the last week than my entire nursing career. I can't stand the sound of a zipper. Okay. But once you can say it, you create a space. And if you have a space, then maybe we could do something in that space to help you. And it was just an innocent process of letting people say the thing that they couldn't say at home. So that circle process and was my first experience of saying, well, why aren't we integrating more modalities like acupuncture or drumming circles?
Yeah.
So I used to use drumming circles with charge nurses. Uh, they weren't sure how to talk to each other. They were new to leadership. Things weren't going well. And we had them working in drumming circles. And they learned how easy it was to fall in and out of rhythm with each other. But once they realized they could fall out and easily come back in, they were a team again. And then the team could talk and come up with solutions, and they felt like a unit of leaders that would be consistent.
That's
So
amazing. That is amazing. We got to go to another short break.
Oh,
I
wow,
love these
already.
stories.
Okay.
They're fantastic. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Tim Michaels, intuitive coach and Reiki master. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Tim Michaels. You can learn more about him at www.tmicar.com. So I want to get into, what it's like to have an experience working with you, Tim. Like what I know the things that you do are very different. I think people can tell just by the conversations we've had already, just, your background and how you work with people. So when someone comes to see you, you do a lot of different things, we're in the realm of holistic coaching and wellness. But one thing that you
Sure.
do that I think is a little unique for most coaches is you integrate Reiki and crystals into a coaching session. So let's talk a little bit about how you do that and why.
So I will integrate the Reiki, the crystals, and when I have the resource, ear acupuncture. Um, so let me take a step back. When somebody reaches out, and let's say they reach out for a coaching session, um, the room I'm in is my treatment room. There's a oversized leather chair, and lightheartedly I'll say to them, "You're in the chair." So anything starts with them in the chair, and we're sitting knee to knee, and I'll explain to them why. I'll explain to them at that point that I'm a physical empath, so that we're going to do a few things simply. We're going to ground. That's such an overused word, but if they've come running in from another appointment, something else going on, or they're already halfway out the door to go pick up children, it's like, I'd like you to try to be present. So let's get your feet on the floor. We're going to take breaths. We're going to do them this way. And I just want you to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there facing them knee to knee. Before they've arrived, I've made sure I understand where my pain and discomfort are physically. So then I'll say to them just generally, what brought you to the session? And they'll start talking. And in that first 10 to 15 minutes, I may be asking them, why does it feel like they're getting a sharp pain in their shoulder? Why are they getting one in their knee? Why did you automatically pull your feet off the floor when you told me that? What's going on with it? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize I did that. I said, well, you said you wanted a change of a job. And as soon as you said it, you lifted your feet off the floor. So when we don't really want to ground into a truth, we get away from the earth.
Yeah.
Now, you may be uncomfortable. Maybe the chair is too tall. So it's kind of going like that. The room is always set. There'll be crystals out. A massage table will be out. The intent was for a coaching session. So as we're talking, I'll say to them, you came for a coaching session. What was your goal? And so, for example, I had a recent client who said, well, I'd like to be better. I said, wow, that's a big goal. Can we break it down a little bit? Or you want to be better with your health, with relationships, handling money? What does being better mean? And we kind of came to a couple of things, and we had to stop because he was really energetically just lifting right up out of the chair. The more he tried to explain it, the more he's trying to pull away. So in that moment, I brought in a little crystals. I brought in smoky quartz. Very good to use to help somebody ground real quickly. And typically I don't explain it to people. I'll just put one in their hand, and either I'll notice them come down, or they'll start saying, that feels different. Good, just hold them until you don't need them. That's all I'm going to say.
Are you actually feeling things in your body, or is it more just the visual that you're recognizing and reading the energy?
I can't say that I read energy. I
Okay.
feel so if I know that I don't have that pain in my body or discomfort, and I begin to feel it in yours,
Right.
then I know something's happening. All I can do is help guide you to that point. I noticed when you said that you get this funny tenseness right over your sternum. Yeah, it's there. I said, and it feels really uncomfortable. Yes. Let's stop. We're going to breathe into it. We're going to move it a little bit and get a little space. Now let's come back. I had asked this question, and as you responded with these words, and then it starts coming back. I said, so we're going to stop. These words that you're using are causing that feeling. Should we say it a different way? Is that the truth? Or often that one right here. So where your solar plexus is going to be meeting your heart chakra, that's usually where people are experiencing a kind of a divide between themselves and what they know they should be grounded into. So you've gotten bad feedback from somebody, you think it's whatever. So we can work that way a little bit. And then as we build, let's say, no, I really want to achieve this goal. Sure. Let's talk about what would be the first thing you do. What is the measures? See, in a very strict coaching, the language sounds like that. How am I going to know you're going to do it? How are we going to measure? What are your goals? Okay. The other one is, how am I going to know that this is meeting your intention? And they'll say to me, well, what do you mean by intention? Well, the goal is get a better job to have more money so you're home more often with your family. Yes. Okay. So is the intention to have a less stress, more peaceful, healthy life? Yes. So we would like to make sure that the jobs you're going after will contain elements that either the work is so exciting, puts you in the zone, you're not going to feel the stress, you're going to feel the joy of working a job you love. So we're going to have to keep coming back and checking in on your intent. If the job with more money isn't increasing ease and peace, which translates into calmer children, then maybe we're not going after the right job.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes at that point, the client might say, I'm just not really sure. Good. How would you feel about doing some breathing exercises? And at that moment, I might say, I think we might get a little further if you're open to having a Reiki session. But the intent we're going to set is to be open to receive clarity around the next step towards a peaceful life.
So just explain a little bit about Reiki. I mean, I think most of our listeners know what Reiki is. Many people have probably had it.
Sure.
But how do you use it? Like, why would you then say for the next step that you would want to do a Reiki session with that client?
So if the client is stressing and uncomfortable about trying to figure it out and get everything done, frazzled, then
Right.
they're in the fight or flight mechanism. So the blood's not really going to their brain to help them think.
Mm-hmm.
So Reiki, number one, is a Japanese treatment process. It is two words that mean universal life force. The person providing it has been through training. So in my case, I've been through 3 different trainings. There's an attunement process. I take the attunement process to be almost like a marriage ceremony, in that I make a commitment to channel God's life force energy. I can't control it. I can't direct it. I can't make it do something to you don't want. There's very strict rules. But because I am committed and I believe in it, then when I'm working with you as a client, what I'm working to do is give you the maximum amount of stress relief by getting that energy flowing through you so that you feel it, you feel lighter, you feel less tension. You may notice your back pain goes away, and that your brain has moved all your junk about 4 feet away. Hasn't taken it away.
Right.
But you now have what I call the dome of space to make good decisions. The thing for me when I'm doing Reiki and the power of it is I know I have osteoarthritis in both knees. Standing during a Reiki session can be hard. It really isn't, because about 10 minutes into it, I'll have no pain at all. And my theory is, sure, if I can move a certain amount of energy, and the problem in the knees is bone on bone, there's no cartilage left, then that energy is giving me little bits of space. It's my temporary cartilage. And it will last a good 2 to 5 hours after a session. I won't have my pain. And
Yeah,
then,
I've heard that a lot, that actually the healer
oh
gets
yeah,
benefits of doing the healing as well.
oh my God, I hate to be this selfish, but if the world was mine,
It just happens that way. You're not being selfish.
oh my God. Well, it does. This is one of the important things I learned. It's great to say that I'm drawn to a life of service, but I recently have been focusing on, but it needs to be service that's good for me. So when I say selfishly, I've always felt bad. I've had such a great time giving a Reiki session to somebody that I'm kind of surprised they're still in the room. Like
Wow.
I'm looking at them thinking, I thought you left already. But when they're talking, it literally feels like I have gone to the best party. I'm still kind of high on all the activity and the love in the room and the joy we've been having. Um, it's it's the same feeling. I'm tired, but reliving all of the events. During a Reiki session for me, a couple of different things are going to happen because I invite them to happen and I have boundaries. So I will invite my guides, I'll invite in Jesus, I will invite the archangels to work for this person's highest good. Um, they will direct and nudge. They will also, it's like slipping a letter in a mailbox is the way I get it. It's, I don't see, it's just all of a sudden I know. So if I'm working over the heart chakra and I start to move away, I'll just know you're not done. That's how it comes. You're not done. So people have had Reiki before will say, well, you never worked on my feet. I said, yeah, they just didn't want me going there. So
Right. Your feet weren't important this time. Maybe next time.
it really wasn't because there was a lot going on here
Right.
and they can talk about it. I can also tell that when the combination of the energy and the intention is working very strongly, I can tell, I'll put it this way, I can tell when the person leaves. And I've had people, I don't know the right way, they leave. Their spirit can get up and walk around, go see things.
Right.
And there's a certain way at the end just to make sure they come back, whether you use gongs or anything else.
Yep.
Particularly when I'm using the crystals as part of it. Um, there's a 3-step approach of figuring out which crystals to use in more of an assessment period, but you always end by using a black crystal to reground the person. And clients will tell me when I take off the crystal that's helping them re-energize an area, I take it off and I put on the grounding crystal. They don't like it. They were
Right. They
having
didn't want to come back.
no. And they
Oh
said
my
it's
God, I love it.
people.
This is so fascinating. We're going to get into a little bit more. We have one more segment left. You're listening to the
Sure.
Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Tim Michaels, intuitive coach and Reiki master. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I want to let you know how you can all reach out to me, www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Tim Michaels, and you can learn more about him at www.tmicar.com. So we've been talking about all kinds of different things. I love the stories and the teaching points that you've been bringing up. I want to make sure people understand like exactly what they're going to experience when they come to you. So let's talk a little bit about the types of clients that you typically work with and what can somebody expect when they come? What types of services and things will you do?
Absolutely. So the use of the term holistic is just to give people an idea that they'll have access to more than just one thing. So we all go to our primary care doctor, then go to the dentist, then go to this one. So my thought was build it so that if people need more, I'm not sending them someplace else. So typically people will come who have, let's say, lost a job and they've been looking for a job in the same industry that they were always in and nothing's happening. So in a very traditional type of coaching session, it would be like, well, okay, let's look at your resume. Let's look at your background. What are you trying to achieve? And then I will kind of talk to them about how's your exercise, how's your sleep, how's your diet, how are your relationships? And it's not to cross a therapeutic line. It's just to say to them, it's really hard to spend 8 hours a day looking for a job and then have a good night's sleep. And then believe you, maybe you'll get a phone call tomorrow.
Right.
So I know you're running out of savings and I know you have this stress, but it's going to become this balled up mess soon. So let's also think about 4 hours of looking for a job in the morning, a break, do this. Do you think you can do that? So we start working in those aspects. And then as time goes along, maybe they'd be interested in a stress management Reiki session. Maybe they'd be interested in crystals. That's going to vary. If somebody reaches out and says, I've been curious about Reiki. So the people who've come to me for Reiki usually are people who have had some interest. Either they've been drawn to, wellness fairs, they like the idea of acupuncture, or, numerology, tarot cards. They've heard great things, they'd like to try it. A lot of the times people are coming because they're stressed, they're not sleeping well, they're overwhelmed. So after a Reiki session, one Reiki session, they'll say, I feel great, but I want to go home and sleep. Absolutely, you do. So go home and sleep and drink lots of water for the next 2 to 3 days. The nice thing both with acupuncture and Reiki is the benefits of it can continue for a couple of days. It's not done when you leave the table. Mm-hmm. So it can stay with you. People who come back more regularly, usually it's because we're working on building intentions, or a good number of people who come to me have some form of long-term chronic illness, especially cancer. Reiki is a wonderful tool to try to bring that warm energy of God's into a person's being. We're not talking about healing. I don't want to go down that path in this short period of time. What we are talking about doing, though, is giving them the rest they need by trying to bring energy to spots where they're tense. Not just the spots, let's say, of a growth of a tumor, but just their whole tense being. And then work with them gently around, the throat chakra and crystals that can help open it up. And are you asking for what you need? Mm-hmm. Are you telling people what's not helpful? Are you feeling confident when you go to your doctors and telling them what you need? So it becomes like priming the pump. Reiki, in that case, helps prime the pump so we can quietly, with our energy kind of balance, talk about what do I need, and then take the next step.
Yeah, it's always amazed me that people who are dealing with a chronic illness, what traditional medicine asks of them, in my opinion, puts so much more stress on the body. Yeah. That's like completely the opposite of what you're trying to do to help someone heal an issue. And I'm not talking about just cancer, like any kind of autoimmune disease or, any kind of chronic health issue that you've had. Probably part of the reason that you're in that situation is from stress. Stress on the body, where you went years without the body being able to take a break, and whether you were in adrenal fatigue or whatever it might be, right. Now the health issue has manifested. Now, to put more stress on the body by having to go through a gazillion, medical procedures and all kinds of stuff like that, half of which, and this is just my opinion, doesn't work for most people. Correct. It's completely doesn't make sense. Right. So I love what you're doing, because really what you're doing is you're helping someone set the body up to begin to heal itself.
Yes. So when people say, how do you heal using crystals? How do you heal with Reiki? I don't. I manage space. I'm very happy to be the channel for the God's life force energy. I then take the products from the earth, and this is really important for people to understand. Crystals grow in the earth. If you've bought crystals and they've broken, do me a favor, please go plant them in the yard. They belong in the earth so they can grow again. They have an energy. But when you bring those two things together, then we're building a energetic, loving frequency that person can decide what they want to do with. And healing really is a personal choice. Mm-hmm. I've said to one client very gently, I said, did you make your decision? Are you going to live or die? And they looked at me for a moment and I said, it doesn't matter which one, but you do need to make a decision. And once you make the decision, each path can be made much more compassionate and comfortable. But you got to decide.
Yeah. That's a great one. I mean, we could do a whole nother show just on that, because I bet anybody listening to this is thinking to themselves, what, like, what do you mean you get to make the choice? Because I think a lot of people think they don't get to make a choice.
That is the thing that scares me the most when a client says, I don't have any choices. Now, I've had cancer, cardiac issues, COVID way too many times. There are certain phases of it where you just feel, especially when parts of your body get removed and you're no longer whole, you're not the same. You feel like it was done to you.
Yep.
But along the way, as you're recovering, you've got to start making choices. What I'm working on for me right now is I want a peaceful, easy life. And that includes the fear of cancer always coming back, the fear of cardiac issues. That includes I get to own how I tell you I talk about it. So if you say to me, oh, it's so sad, your arthritis is kicking up. No, this is my new norm. And I asked you for help with this. So when I go to my doctors and they say at your age, no, don't do that to me. What I
Yeah,
do
I
want
love
you
that
to do
one.
is tell me my new norms, and then I'm going to work them really hard
Yeah,
because I want a peaceful, easy life.
I love it. So
Um,
tell us something that would surprise people about you.
oh my God, probably after listening to this interview, it surprises most people that I am a really confident introvert. And I think that's why I have such a ball doing coaching and the Reiki. The working with the frequency and energy is easy for me. It beautiful to take into my inner world and play with it. And it creates all my other dream worlds in my head. But I'm 6'4", old bald man, and people assume I want to be in charge and I'm in control and I'm sitting over in the corner. I will always find the smallest corner to go curl up in and have my books and my dreams. Um, it's my happy place. So I think that's the thing that's always shocking. I think more and more people are very shocked to realize that at this stage of my life, this is where I choose to be happy and spend my time.
Yeah.
It really is in this spiritual world of energy and frequency. I just am looking for, and the tools are going to grow and change. They already are. There'll be more and more being brought in. And the room is an eclectic room of all the tools because I just don't know when you finally arrive, even though you said you wanted a coaching session. I'm not sure once you get in the chair what the agenda is you're going to set. Once I get you into a safe zone, I'm ready to go any direction you want to go in.
Yeah, which is really cool because I mean, honestly, it's almost like the universe is directing that, or your
Oh,
spirit, or the client's soul or whatever comes in and
it
directs it, and
absolutely,
it'll go where it's supposed to go.
absolutely. And that's what I call my nudge. We
Yep.
start going down a path or I start giving a response and I'll look at the client, I'll say, I'm sorry, they're telling me no. They want you to hear this. This is what it is. And often it's like, I don't know what it means. It's like, I hope
Right.
it means something to you, but they're very clear
Yeah.
what you're looking at.
Well, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
Fascinating discussion. Like I said, we have there's a million other topics that you and I could talk about for sure. Absolutely loved it. So thank you so much for being with us. Again, people can learn more about you at
Absolutely.
www.tmicar.com. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time on the show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.